This is Master Your Mindset with Coach Mark.
What is going on, my people? And welcome back to another Monday episode. I'm super pumped up. I actually just got off a call with my future master coaches, and I decided I'm just going to jump in here and record this podcast because this is a super powerful one that if they didn't fully implement and I didn't fully implement, like we literally wouldn't be here to be able to help the world like we're able to help right now. And I know it's the same way with you. So today what we're going to do is I'm literally going to show you how you can create time in your life to learn any skill so that you can have massive success without actually having to take away from the important areas of your life. Here's the thing. We like to talk about limiting beliefs a lot on this, but whenever I say that I'm going to help people create time or I'm going to help them like manage their time, what their brain goes down the path of is like, that's going to be hard. That's going to be stupid. It's going to like literally take away from all these other areas. I'm not going to have time to like not enjoy myself. And I'm going to be here to tell you that that's the opposite of actually what's going to happen. When I was able to like use this idea that we're going to talk about today, not only did I get to develop my skill and lift my leadership lid, like John Maxwell says, but I actually got to spend more time in the key areas that I needed to in my life, including playing video games, going out on walks with my daughter or with my wife, like getting a chance to do those things while still excelling in my police career, while still excelling in my business, and also in my health and fitness. And it's because I understood that I could excel at it all. And really, I had the skills that I'm going to talk to you guys about today, the 3 different tips to help you get started with that, okay? Now, what most people really do is they know they have to develop a skill. They want to become a better father, a better husband. They want to become a better business owner. They want to become better, whatever, soccer player. That's what my daughter's going to do right now. She's going to become a better soccer player. But what we do is like we think about in terms of like the developing of the skill is actually taking from us. We think that we're going to not have enough time. We're not going to have enough energy. It's going to take extra time that we have on our plates away. We have so much stuff that's kind of going on. And we never take a second to actually sit down and realize the impact that developing that skill will make. And we're always in this like taking lack kind of like mindset. But in reality, when you learn a skill, yes, sometimes it takes muscle memory for you to be able to do it over and over and over again so you can actually get really good at it. But once you develop a skill, like let's say you develop a skill around creating a business, you develop a skill around selling, you develop a skill around connecting with your significant other, that's a skill that you have for the rest of your life. Think about that. It's a skill you have for the rest of your life. And so many different things like selling, leadership, same thing, by the way. When you develop that, you get to carry that around to multiple different areas instead of focusing on the lack, which is what we term in the Push Coach Certification School with me and Josh. We term this as head versus heart. The head wants to keep you trapped and wants to prevent you from taking the actions that you need to take because it's going to feel uncomfortable, because you don't know what the outcome is going to be, because our brain will trick us into thinking that like we don't have enough time, we don't have enough energy, it's just going to like literally take from us. But in reality, the heart is from a different place. It comes from this place of like, you know what, if I do this, it's going to be a skill that I have for the rest of my life. I'm not going to have to learn how to do this thing over and over and over and over again. No, I can learn it and I can really lean into it. And yes, I can continue to get better at it because I never think that there's a place where you're like, hey, I'm a good enough leader. But you could develop the skills in the beginning to really help you out exponentially so that you can literally take it and move it to any other area of your life. And that's the opportunity that you have when it's time to develop a new skill, which, by the way, a time to develop a new skill was yesterday, right? It's for all of us. We all have new skills, including me. I always constantly am thinking, what's the next skill that I need to learn to go to the next level, all right? And that is why thinking that you don't have the time to learn a new skill is the worst thing that you can think if you actually want to make an impact, not only in the world, but for yourself and for your family. Now, I get why you might feel that. As a matter of fact, I used to feel that way as well, because time is like, they say it's our most valuable resource, right? So when it comes to time, we don't get it back. But at the same time, it can just always feel like you don't have enough of it, right? You're like, I just don't have enough of it. But let me ask you this. What are the consequences of you not finding the time or not developing that skill? You see, that's something that we don't actually think about. We actually think about like the lack of time that we have, but I really want you to think about like what kind of impact will it make when you take the time and energy to develop that skill? Yes, it is a very valuable resource, but if you don't take that time, like you're never going to be able to elevate and take that to the next level, right? So if you never develop that skill, you don't raise your leadership lid. I was kind of talking about this a little minute ago. And that is, John Maxwell talks about your leadership lid. And I like to think about this in terms of any type of skill that we're doing. So we naturally have skills some of those are like a level 1, some of those are like a level 5, some of those are like a level 8, all right? In order for us to develop ourselves in those skills, we have to learn more things, right? We have to implement more things. And by doing so, we take our lid from like, let's say a 5 when it comes to leadership to like a 7 or an 8. We take our leadership lid of sales from 2 to 5. And that's really where progress is. And then once you get to 5, guess what? How might I get to 6 or 7? Now, you're not going to take a level 1 skill and make it a level 10, but you can get it pretty high when you're willing to like invest in yourself, right? It's the same with your leadership. It's the same with your sales. It's the same with everything that we're talking about here. Parenting, you can always go to that next level, but you have to spend the time to develop those skills. Now, today, I want to share 3 different things that really helped me like to not only get beyond my brain telling me that I didn't have the time, but how I was able to create the time. How I was able to make the time to do those things so that I could actually have more time later to do the things that I really wanted to do, okay? So these are 3 different things. Number 1, we start off with number 1, because that's where we start off, is you're going to have to identify what skill to learn. Number 1 is you have to identify what skill to learn. What most people do is they'll say, you know what, I want to start a business. And so they'll start listening to every podcast, reading every book, joining every course that they need to join, participating in whatever they can, never really identifying the actual skill they need to learn. They just say, I just need to become a better communicator. Like, what does that mean? Like, what is the skill that you need to develop in order to get there? When you think about business, I can think of like 20 different skills. I mean, there's marketing, there's social media, there's podcasts if you have a podcast. There's sales, there's attraction marketing, there's sales psychology, which Josh and I talk about. There's so many different things. There's coaching. There's so many different things, and really being able to identify like what is that step, what is that skill that I need to develop is the first step. Because just throwing things blindly and just listening to everything that you possibly can on audio or podcasts is not going to help you grow. I mean, you might find some things that are going to actually, it's going to be more of like a shotgun method where you're just like all over the place. But really, when you develop a skill, if you go all in with that skill, that is how you develop that skill the fastest so that you can move on and develop another skill next. Now, how I do this is last weekend when I was live in St. Louis, we took people through what's called the Mount Everest exercise. And that is like taking your goal to the end. Like you're at the top of Mount Everest and you're looking down. And now the next person who's about to climb, you get to tell them some of the skills that you had to develop to get to the top. And by doing it that way, you actually come from a place of knowing because you just climbed that mountain. And you're going to be able to tell them which path to take, what shoes to put on, at what point they need to stop and rest, right? And have the tent so that they can go in and drink water and just get out of the cold and get out of the elements for a little bit. Who should come with them, right? All of those things, you will come from a place of knowing. And when you're able to look down and go, hey, these are the 2 or 3 skills that I had to develop in order to get here to the top, then you know what it is that you need to focus on now, right? All right. That is tip number 1. Tip number 2 is find a course, program, or a mentor that you can actually implement in the cracks of your time. Here's what I mean by this. I first heard this as mom cracks, and then I ended up making them dad cracks now. Doesn't matter. But it's basically these small windows that you have, small opportunities that we kind of give away. Let me give you an example. So if I'm cooking, if I'm going on a walk, if I'm driving, if I'm doing something that I typically would do that doesn't really require my brain work, if I'm folding clothes, like I don't have to naturally think about how to perfectly fold clothes. As a matter of fact, my wife would probably yell at me because I don't fold clothes very, very well. But it's because I got my earphones in and I'm learning a skill. I'm plugging into a course. I'm plugging into a mentor. I'm plugging into an audiobook. I'm plugging into something that's going to develop my skills in the cracks. You see, what most people do is they think, well, I've got to develop this skill, so I'm going to have to block out my calendar and do 4 hours every single day. And that's not the way that I did it. I mean, that is one way, but the way that I found to be most helpful is if you have a lot of things going on, find those cracks. As a matter of fact, when I'm on duty, if I have a block, like let's say I'm what's on code 7 or I'm on lunch, I will be doing something like that. I'll be listening to something while I'm eating my food. And it's because I want to constantly grow. And of course, if you live in Los Angeles and you're driving and you're not listening to any kind of growth, you're giving up like literally a year of university every like couple months because of the amount of time that we take when it comes to driving, all right? So that is how we really make sure that we find those cracks and we add the skill of like learning that skill in that specific time, right? It doesn't take us any extra time. It's just finding those cracks, all right? Tip number 3, this is our final tip, and that is like find a mastermind team or a mentor to grow exponentially. So find a mastermind team or a mentor to grow exponentially. So a lot of times when we are by ourselves, when we're trying to learn the skill by ourselves, we can develop that skill, but it takes a little bit longer. Because remember, what caused the problem is generally not what solves the problem, right? From the same place, from the same consciousness. And a lot of times we have limiting beliefs. We have things in here, pre-programs that says it has to be done this way. It can't be done any other way. And when we're trying to learn, we're literally flowing what it is we're learning through these things in here that get it all over the place, right? It doesn't actually help us find and create and generate new ideas. It's like literally this is just the way that it always has been. When you're around other people and they're the right people, they're people who are heading in the same direction, they're trying to develop that skill, or somebody who's a mentor is leading them because they've been able to develop that skill and they can come back and grab you and say, hey, this is the best way that I found to do it. Not that it's the only way, but this is what has worked for me. It helps speed up that process. Today we had a coaching call for people trying to develop into master coaches inside of our program. And one of the things we were talking about is buffering and how we can, in our lives, we try to escape a feeling. And then how we try to escape a feeling is trying to do something that we know we shouldn't really be doing, whether it's overeating, whether it's scrolling social media, whether it's whatever it is. So we get this feeling, like let's say you're in your business and you send a message to people, or it's time to send messages to people, or you get a message back from somebody, and then immediately it just feels like, oh, you know what, my house needs to be cleaned right now. Or you know what, I really need to go and see my kids because I'm like a bad parent if I don't. That's actually a form of buffering because you don't want to feel, I guess like the feeling would be, you don't know what to say, like you don't know what's going to happen next, like what is it they're going to respond back to, and you don't want to feel uncomfortable. So instead you do this other thing over here. And what it does is not only do you still have this thing over here that you didn't do, but you also compound it because you're doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing. Anyway, inside of this training, what I do is I separate them into smaller groups. I teach them what has worked for me and worked for the thousands of people that I've coached, but then I want them to open up their minds to each other because they all have different experiences, right? And what it does is by the end of an hour call, it's literally like they had 10 calls because we get to each share what has worked best for them, what hasn't worked best for them, what's worked best for their clients, etc. And it's exponential growth. So that's a time when if you're in a mastermind, usually it's about 1 hour call a week, you pour in 1 hour, but you actually get 10 hours of training. You actually get 10 hours of ideas. You actually get 10 hours of motivation because at the end of that, everybody's like, I'm ready to go out and conquer the world, right? Because you're hanging out with those people and the expectations of the peer group is what's most important, right? And so tip number 3 is find a mastermind and a mentor to really help you guide you in that direction, all right? This does not take any longer than an hour a week. And if you think about the amount of time that you have per week, 1 hour is not a big deal. And then when you think about like filling in the rest of the cracks that you have, I still want you to have times where you don't do anything, where you're just like staying in the silence. But if you're trying to develop a skill, I also want you to fill up some of those cracks with that skill that you want to develop. All right. All right, guys, quick recap. Number 1, identify the skill that you want to learn. Actually identify the skill. What is the actual skill? All right. Number 2 is find the cracks in your day to fit that course or whatever it is that you're going to be a part, book, whatever. Number 3 is find a team or mentor to help you take that to the next level and also speed up the process for you, okay? And remember, once you learn that skill, you get it for the rest of your life. And it is not just related to that specific thing that you're learning it for. It's actually something that goes into multiple different areas. So when we talk about leadership, when we talk about sales, when we talk about all that, it goes into multiple areas. Let me tell you, when I try and get my kids to sell my kids to eat their vegetables, when I try to sell them to do X, Y, and Z, it's the same thing. And it's a skill that I was able to develop and literally move into another area. And that's what you guys are going to be able to do too. Okay. All right, guys, I appreciate you for making it to another end of a Monday episode. I hope these episodes have been very helpful for you. If they have, it would be a huge solid if you could leave me a rating and review. I think we're almost at 100. And if we can hit 100, I would appreciate you guys no matter what, no matter if all I do is hit 88. But I would appreciate it. Any feedback that you give, I greatly appreciate it. And if you guys have any questions about anything that we talked about here today, definitely reach out. You can go to mindsetwithmark.com/discovery. I have a little form where I can really help you take wherever you're at to the next level, or even connect you with another life coach. If there's somebody out there that you want to develop a skill that's something that I can't do because integrity is such an important part of me. If it's a skill that I've never developed myself, I do not feel right teaching or training, which is why I have a entire life coach school that I co-created to actually help really build other coaches up. And they excel in multiple different areas. So if I can ever help you with that, please don't hesitate to reach out, okay? All right, guys, I appreciate you so much. You guys have an incredible week, and I'll see you guys on Thursday. All right, bye, everybody.